Okay, I'd like to start the meeting. Can I call the meeting to order? Today is October 20th, 2015. The time is 7:17 roughly. I have a couple of adjustments to the agenda. I'd like to change the 7.1 from the PBL graduation standards to, we are going to have our senior privilege students talk, and that will be an action item. Only that one item will be an action item, and then we're going to move the PBL / graduation standards to 4.2. And then the other adjustment to the agenda is 8.3.5, teacher supervision and evaluation. That is going to be moved to 8.5. We're going to repeal D17, teacher supervision and evaluation. That was a mistake in the agenda. Okay?
One other thing, on the confirmed next meeting dates, the common topic next month is going to be special ed. This is the only opportunity that as a CVU board we talk about special ed, because it's been moved to the supervisory union. So it's a big chunk of our schools, big chunk of our kids, so it'd be really great if everybody could make sure that you can get to that comment.
And I will be addressing that also under the budget buddies too, because we would like our budget buddies to attend that meeting. Okay, so audience and communication? None? Okay, 4.1, senior privilege. And we need a motion to discuss this, I believe.
No, we're going to approve it, right? Motion to approve.
It's a motion to approve, okay.
Need a second.
Second.
Who was the motion and who was the second?
I moved.
Jean. Okay.
Great. Hi, I'm Jenna Kennedy. I am 2016 co-president.
My name is Ezra Lozon. I am also co-president of 2016.
I'm Jeremiah Corey, and I'm a member of the class of council 2016.
And we're here to talk to you guys about senior privileges. So senior class of 2016 will be able to leave school grounds during their respective unscheduled blocks and return during school hours if these privileges are approved. These privileges would be specifically only granted to the senior class, and underclassmen would continue to stay on school grounds.
So far, what we've done in the past couple of months is we've made announcements about the privileges and have made sure that all seniors and parents are notified of the senior privileges and what is expected of them. And we've made sure that they're responsible enough to take care of their privileges and handing in their forms as well.
What's going around right now is a copy of the form that we have all the seniors and their parents sign.
Us and the rest of the senior class council are going to be in charge of enforcing senior privileges. We'll have a sign-out sheet right outside of the main office. So if you're leaving, you're going to have to sign out and then sign back in with your time.
And there will be consequences if these privileges are not followed strictly. And those will be that you could get, the student who disobeys the rules will be spoken to with their house administrator, and they will get their privileges taken away for, I think, 3 weeks the first time they disobey the rules, and for the second time they will get their rules taken away for good.
We really made sure to stress to the class of 2016 that these are privileges and not just a right, so they can be taken away just as quickly as they have been awarded to us. So we want to make sure, and we've done a lot of stressing to the students that this shouldn't be taken lightly, and it should be shown. It's pretty much a way for them to show that we can be treated as adults. And that we are responsible enough to have such privileges.
Do you guys have any questions about the privileges? Yes.
Do parents have to sign off on this?
Yes, unless you are 18 years old and had your 18 papers signed, then your parents do have to sign off.
Joan.
Is there ever a situation that one individual or a group of them would affect the consequences for the whole senior class?
I
You
think-
talked about that.
I think depending on what's happened, if there's a very serious issue, then it will be taken out of our hands to decide what happens to the class, and it will be given most likely to you guys to decide if we deserve to have these privileges anymore, depending on what happens. There has not been many issues in the past, at least in the past couple of years.
What is good academic standing? What's the criteria? It seems a bit subjective.
Yeah, I think it is subjective. I think it depends if,
I think it's, no, well, I think what that's talking about is the, kind of the norm for second semester seniors to kind of not do any schoolwork.
yeah, I think it's kind of
So
honor
kind of
system.
just, yeah, I think as long as the seniors, keep putting effort into their classes,
It's-
and don't just fall back.
I think that as seniors, we should be able to be responsible enough to know, like, if we're going to get lunch and leaving school instead of doing our homework, that's not in good academic standings, and I think that these privileges are a way to see if we're responsible enough to do that ourselves.
And if it does come to a situation where a student is abusing those things and not taking care of their academics first, then that should be something that is later discussed with their counselor, who I'm sure all counselors at all 4 years that I've been here have showed concern when academics are slipping, to make sure that everything in our
I'm
situation.
just reading your criteria. It says that you must be in good academic
So we
standing.
would
as-
define that as one or more failures in a class, so
Okay.
student,
Is it an overall grade?
as, yes, as an overall grade.
Okay, so the respective houses would be responsible for that?
We would, we think
Okay.
that.
So they actually get sign off on this then? So it's not just the parents and the students, but also the house?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
the houses have been
monitor it.
collecting
Okay.
forms.
Okay.
Not to focus on the negative, but I know in athletics, a weekend, if you get in trouble over a weekend, it can impact your sports privilege. Would that also apply in this case?
I think it definitely could, yeah.
I think it
What do
definitely.
you mean, like if they go and do something they're not allowed to do on the weekends while
Yeah.
they're leaving school, then yes, that would affect.
Okay, great.
Definitely something that should be discussed depending upon the situation, so.
Okay.
Are there some seniors who have not turned in the signed form?
Yes, the requirement every year is to get 85%, and we got 87%, and forms are still coming in, but the requirement is only 85%.
I have a question. Do you ever have seniors who don't fill this out and then they don't get senior privileges?
No. It's kind of like it's not really a fair system. It's like if 85% do it, then everyone's rewarded, even though not everyone worked for it.
I mean, if it's something where a situation where a student or a parent of that student doesn't want them to receive those senior privileges, then I believe that's kind of an honor system between the parent and the student. Yes.
Any concerns, Adam?
I don't know. I've been extraordinarily impressed with the senior class, and I've said it to them on many occasions. And I'll echo something that Tim Trevithick said to me as I was getting this job. He said, "You are so lucky to have the senior class that you have." And I think Tim knows that a high school often goes as its senior class goes, and the leadership and responsibility I've seen from these young adults thus far in this year has been impressive. And of course, there'll be ups and downs as there are in any school year, but I've been very pleased with them.
So can I ask a question? Do I make a recommendation that the form need to be signed by the student and the parent?
I have to say, I'm kind of surprised it was 85%. I thought it was a lot higher.
Yeah, I thought one, it would be higher, but two, I think there's, to the responsibility element, I think, to have that discussion and sign it with your parents is the first step of owning your action.
Yeah.
And also, heaven forbid, something happens if they do leave the campus in second or third period and the form hasn't been signed. I hate to play out that what if,
Sure.
but I'm concerned about that.
Yeah, well, we've been following past precedent that what's been happening the last decade or so, as far as I can tell. The actual number's up around 90%. Getting 100% can be a little bit difficult just because we have so many students who are getting learning elsewhere. So that can be a little bit of a trick, but.
I think the other problem, Kathy, is no one's monitoring, is this person who's walking out the door, you know, check, you've got your, so.
I understand the monitoring, but if you want the privilege, can you not sign a piece of paper saying that I want to respect the privilege and.
Well, some people don't want I mean, some students actually don't have transportation or aren't interested in that, so.
And I understand that, but.
Yeah, no, it's a point that's well taken, absolutely.
Leah?
I was just going to say that I feel like for this year's senior class, this is the system that we're operating under, and you're making interesting suggestions that maybe we should be thinking about or talking with student council about for the future, but I would hate to see this class being held to a different standard, not knowing that that was a standard they were being held to until this minute, you know what I mean?
But we haven't supported it yet, right? It's not.
We've supported it each year up to now.
Yeah.
Those of us who have been on the board, so.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, well, let's take a vote. All those in favor of granting the senior privileges to our senior class, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstain? The ayes have it.
I'm abstaining.
Oh, sorry,
I'm abstaining.
Kathy's going to abstain. The ayes have it. Congratulations, you have your senior privileges.
Thank you.
Good job, guys.
Okay, let's go on to 4.2, PBL/graduation standards, and I think, Adam, that's you.
That is me, and this is also Catherine Riley.
I could have sworn it was like 95% or something. Yeah.
So you have the pleasure of not only having Catherine Riley, our Director of Curriculum and Instruction, help me present this month, but next month as well with our
Yay.
group coming here. So Catherine, thank you.
That's right.
So Catherine and I are here to talk to you tonight about, I think, one of the most fun parts of our jobs, and that is, as a principal, as an administrator, from a 30,000 foot, I'm not always 30,000 feet, maybe 5,000 feet at times, foot view, you get to see where all the disparate pieces of initiatives, our educational practices come together, and you get to see where the dovetails are, where the intersections are, and it's fun because from that position, things really start to make sense. From a board position, I don't think that's always easy. I think I would imagine, I've never been on a school board, so I would imagine one of the greater challenges of being on a school board is making meaning of the edu jargon that's out there, of the various state or federal initiatives, and even the terms we use for professional development. So tonight we're going to be looking at proficiency-based learning, proficiency-based graduation, and trying to help you make sense of some of the terms that are out there. And I know some of you know this, are very knowledgeable about proficiency-based learning, and some are new. So we've designed a couple of activities to hopefully have a little bit of fun with some of the learning. Maybe a bit of a stretch. To aid some of the learning. And then we are actually going to share a video clip where we have a 9th grader from Montpelier High School just came presenting to our entire faculty. And she has a very impressive way of bringing all the kind of disparate pieces of proficiency-based learning together so that you can see it in action via a student. So we'll watch that clip after about a 15-minute activity, and then we'll open it up for about 5 minutes of questions and move on. Is that good?
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to have Catherine kick off our activity.
So, hi. This is an activity that you might see if you're walking through the halls of CVU. And it's just a tile activity where you have some sheets of paper, you have small sheets of paper. And what you're going to do with these sheets of paper is you're going to try to match the sentences to or the fragments of sentence to the actual term. But the terms, to add a little twist for you, the terms aren't written, so it's the abbreviation for the terms. So if you're walking through the halls of CVU and people throw out terms like SBL or MTSS or NCSS or CCSS, then those are the letters you're going to see. You will eventually get an answer key, but if you just take a few minutes right now and try to lay these out right in front of you, Ray's got a good start, and then you'll see the terms, then you'll see the letters, and see how many of those you can match up.
It will be in a second.
Group activity, you are not getting graded.
I need a 4.
I'll trade 4 for 3.
That's gonna kill me if I don't get an A.
What about the blank
The
ones?
blank ones are just
The wild card.
You got a blank?
That would have been a good idea, but that's just.
Truly gets the edgy jargon at its finest
Oh
here.
my gosh, I keep finding more acronyms.
That's what I was saying. No, I've been thinking that.
Yeah.
There's so many.
There's an extra one. Are you screwing?
Okay.
8, 10. I have 10 of those. Oh, wait a minute.
9 of these, 10 of these. 1 of 10.
I have 1 extra too.
10 of these, and 9.
You can take out EQS.
We can
Darn
cover
it,
that.
I knew
That's the one they could fit with one of them, but you can't fit in there.
Yeah, EQ.
MTSS?
No.
EQS.
EQS.
Another wild card.
EQS is not
Right,
the one that you'll
They
hear.
all sound like
That's on the same.
Oh, we can take the QS out.
Glasses would help.
So you've had a few minutes of kind of private think time where you work on your own to figure this out. If you would like to work with a neighbor, if that would be helpful, you can go ahead and shift to that mode.
I got 1.
Well, I got it.
Okay, so let's try this. Patient multi-tiered. Something or other.
Excellent, folks.
Oh,
Is this one, I think? No. This one. Oh, yes, that's where I just hit it. This means it's just.
Isn't that what
well, I don't know. Oh, here we go. Got it. Okay.
The next age might be
Personal way.
actually asking us what some of the acronyms stand for before you get the answer sheet. So if you're doing fine on your own, keep going.
Gene, do you need any help? I've got them all done.
I do, there's no numbers. I can't do things if there's no numbers.
Probably got them all wrong.
I know what LT is, I have LT.
Oh, that's not.
Okay, I need to know what LT is.
Learning targets.
Ah,
So that might be an articulated
learning
goal
goal,
for
so that'd be a
lesson or
learning
unit
goal.
set.
I would be a Bob's team.
I think Bob's got the inside scoop.
You gonna score me?
Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
that what teaching professionals do? And then you're gonna share your assessment with others?
I don't know, there's only 2 I got left.
What, MTSS and CCSS?
TSS is
Explain.
multi-tiered systems of support. So that's implementation of instructional modification and interventions to improve student performance. Standard-based grading.
Oh, they're all foreign.
It's just alphabet soup.
It's just alphabets.
CCSS.
Uh-oh, I might mess everything up.
Educational task. Okay, wait, no, we can't.
I'll just put that one there.
What is SBG and SB?
If you're at a
Guides
point where you
curriculum,
would like
science
the answer
content.
key, give me a
That
nod.
that would be assessment tracking reporting, I think.
Got it.
That's a good one.
CCSS.
Common core.
I think we got it. That must be this one. Oh, before you wreck yourself.
I hope so.
I think is they're all connected.
Sort of like moving them around because I think that there's even right?
Yeah,
Sure, I'm ready.
Yeah.
Oh, this is what these mean? Oh, this is the answer sheet.
we got an answer sheet.
Flip it upside down.
There is no SBG.
We don't have to look.
Yes, I got it.
I don't have an SBG.
Well, no wonder you
I'm ready for the answer.
I don't have an SBG.
Can I share your answer sheet?
Okay.
Did you put that as
Maybe we can do another. That's good. Where?
Got that one wrong.
No, represents, yeah. 1, 2, 3, not bad.
You want to get closer to this place. Standards-based learning.
You don't go to 3
Closer
miles.
to the second
I remember
You did?
think I got an 87.
Not bad.
we can
Testing.
just a number of years ago.
Okay, so we're gonna throw another wrinkle into this.
9 or 10.
Part of what I hope you're feeling right now is
We're grading or something.
how it, I mean, when you see these educational ideas down on paper like this, shredded out, you begin to wonder, okay, how do I make meaning of this? How are these disparate initiatives or even laws important for our kids? So we're going to have you think a little bit with a partner next to you, and particularly through a board lens. So when I think about the work of the board, I think about policy, advocacy, and resource allocation. So we're going to have you focus primarily on resource here and try to rank your top 5 places that you would want to see resource going into. Organize that.
Are you talking about places of,
You mean out of,
When you think about,
with these?
you can think of these as
acronyms?
professional development initiatives if you want. In terms of the resources, time, energy, money, how would you like to see, how would you rank the top 5 here?
Of what we have here,
What you have.
out of the 9.
Yep. Just have fun with it, there's no.
Yeah, you're right around.
Can we do this together?
And then do it with your partner, yeah, better than that.
Because
I know, well,
there's such an overlap that, there's no trouble to say you change it.
Couldn't do one without the other.
Right, I mean, the shorts would go together, I mean, this is what science.
put our resources?
You know, certainly there's money into science, but they're all.
Some of them are specific, where others are more generalized.
I would get rid of the text itself. Maybe we can eliminate it.
Right on that, or you can.
Yeah, let's do that. That's a better way of doing it.
Okay, so I can eliminate.
We have to do 5 of them.
Yeah, fine. We need 3 more.
To eliminate. Well, we could,
I mean, how do you not do common core standards? I mean, you need standards, but do we need an national?
we've got locally deleted, so.
Yeah, so I would say we can do a common core.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
And if that,
Well,
well, you know, it's weird, Common Core doesn't really cost
sports.
Well,
It's not an expense.
well, we're just limited for elevator vehicles, electric five. So, what's it? What's LT? Isn't that obvious?
Well, I would think so if we've got the standard. I was reading it proficiency. I think.
Yeah.
But the LTs.
Well, and everybody fits
Standards-based grading. I mean, that seems obvious. If you're going to have standards, you got to do something.
That's very,
ELPs.
Good practice. Money in curriculum.
Yeah.
Well, so do you need both? Look at, aren't they the same thing? MTSS and standard-based learning. No?
Multi-tiered. Multi-tiered.
If you've got PLPs, you need MTSS. I don't know.
So we're get rid of the MTS. Okay, that's it, we're finished. We're gonna put money into what, science? Graduation requirements, standards-based learning, that's so obvious.
And it's
Good, you got your man.
I personally said it. You got the school system, no problem. School district.
We'll take all right.
Other than just like instructional learning, schoolwork, and there's some children that work outside of bounds.
What I feel
it's beneficial.
Which one are you missing? Which? Oh, assessment?
Yeah. One thread at a time.
So that's SPG.
So they're all sort of like this. And I think it will bring well.
That's sort of,
No,
I mean,
that's
the first thing you gotta do. We want
I was worried I'd still.
You gotta know what it's supposed to be.
Probably at a school level.
Hated those courses where you don't think you know what it is.
No, that's not what I wanted.
Yeah. Put it also last week doing math paper.
You should have. It would have just been another complex. I'll tell you.
Or articulated.
at least I find, I don't understand some of
So if we don't like it,
I'm excited.
It's in the class.
clear goals for learning and college and as a teacher, I was
It's great, and I think maybe it's 80% of it, 80% after assessing. It's a very valuable thing, and in 20%, I think it's just a check and move on. It doesn't.
It's interesting.
Yeah,
Way in front of the curve at one point. It's no longer in front of the curve.
I think it needs a serious revisiting.
Yeah, my daughter, I think, was in the first class that did it.
Right.
And we don't have that.
Right.
Kids were crazed, teachers were crazed, they didn't know what they were doing. Sort of guidance.
Well, it was interesting listening to
Mentors.
some of my fellow board members talking, because they were just really thinking about, well, kids can't make those kind of decisions, and I'm like, well, right, because they don't have to. I mean, if you have to train them, we have to train ourselves to learn how to make decisions, and you make some bad ones. But if you don't get to ever think about it, how do you ever get to do that? And then you wind up graduating from college saying, I don't know, I think I'll float down the Ganges or something, because I don't know what I'm going to do with myself, because they haven't had the opportunity to really think of it, like in a structured way. I don't know, I'm really excited about it.
Right.
I just,
I'll get a kick out of that. Yeah.
It's useless. And I think
Excited. I don't know, what would you keep and what would you get rid of?
Oh, boy. How to motivate.
Well, that was somebody already.
I mean,
I like the learning goals. That's really
before you do anything else.
learning targets.
The learning target.
Yeah, I think that's really.
All righty.
If you don't mind just wrapping up where you are.
I got a face.
So I heard a few comments that I think would be fun to share before we get into looking at how one school has answered some of these questions about how does this all fit together, where we put our resource. But one MTSS and PLPs that I
Oh, is it
thought-
the same, I guess?
Yeah, aren't they the same, or why do we need MTSS if we're doing PLPs?
Great question.
What's the answer?
Because.
We want to answer.
Well, they're way
I would
different.
say PLPs are like building on the strengths of where kids are and what their passions are and what are they interested in, and how to like pull those two things together so you get maximum learning. And MTSS is more of an intervention system for those kids where like you've got all of that together and still something's not quite clicking, that kind of provides the supports for those kids.
So is that different than an IEP?
Yes, totally, because
it's
MTSS
for
might be for
everybody.
all kids at some point or other, depending on, you know, what the topic is, and are we stretching them enough, or?
But it's intended to eliminate the hard line that 5 or 10 years ago existed between the regular learning and
Right.
ELP.
Yeah.
You were evident when you crossed over. MTSS says there's no hard lines, that you just.
It's all
it's an
about
array
making
of
sure
systems.
all kids learn.
But you could
But the
imagine a PLP.
Incorporating that.
Yeah.
Imagine a PLP as
Yeah.
a very intensive experience. And so, I mean, and it's fun to look statewide when people start thinking about PLPs.
Right.
There's so many definitions for it now.
Really?
What, you know, kind of where on a continuum are we,
Yeah.
where are folks in the rest
Yeah.
of the state? You have these 3 letters that come together and mean so many things.
Right.
So Adam, could it be overlap? Could PLPs eventually replace anything that would be specialized for a special needs student or someone? Could it just all be one continuum?
It's hard for me to imagine it happening in the very near future, but I think theoretically someday, sure.
Well,
But
better.
not in terms of like an IEP.
Right, right. Okay, just checking.
It's not a legal document, so although through Act 77.
Right.
But if you have limited resources, right, and you can only, I can only do one of these, or 6 of these, I can't remember how many of these I can do, but why wouldn't I want to invest my money in something it seems to shortchange a PLP if you're not going to throw your resources at it. It feels like you're going to increase the need for MTSS because there's not going to be somebody who is looking at each kid's individual, right? So wouldn't you decrease the need for an MTSS if you had everybody on aggressive PLPs?
But, well. Or vice versa.
Or vice versa. If you can
They
only
support
do
each-
one,
they
if you're
support
only
each other.
looking at resources.
I guess, I don't know, I'm in love with MTSS. I just think it's a really good idea. Well, it's because where I see it working really well is in schools where kids are flexibly moved into different tiers of intervention depending on how they're doing with a particular set of content at a particular time, and even in high school. So they're not always, you're taking Algebra 2. Okay, but I'm really having trouble with this thing. Well, you go to intervention for a few weeks with an extra dosage of math to really work on that or whatever to strengthen your skills, and then you're back doing what you're doing. And it's intended to be a really flexible system. When it goes wrong is if you start talking about tier 1 kids, tier 2 kids, and tier 3 kids. Then it's wrong because it's supposed to be moving up and down depending on your level of need at any given time.
So is it sort of the implementation of the PLPs needs multiple tiered systems to be able to implement PLPs?
Well, I think the caution I would throw out about PLPs is to think of PLPs as a product instead of a process. And so I think when we're really thinking about personalized learning plans, it's an ongoing event almost where your classes are built into your PLP. You're constantly doing reflection. You're meeting with others. Could it become so much the norm that going out and really recognizing individual students' differences and celebrating that becomes something that a school culture embraces to the point where you do move away from MTSS or the need to say we need to tier kids. It's interesting to think about. It's fun to think about. What are some other ideas that popped out here in terms of what intrigued you?
Can I just ask a question on the term intervention? So how are you defining that in this discussion?
An educational intervention?
Yeah, under the MTSS.
So there's I don't know if anyone else wants to take that on. You are in love with it.
I am in love with it. I've seen it.
I'm
work so well for
infatuated with
kids.
it myself.
Yeah.
I'm just curious what the definition of intervention is.
So it's really a continuum of interventions that you'd be looking at.
Is it support, tutoring,
Could be.
mentoring?
Could be tutoring, it could
Okay.
be a different structure for the learning, it could be a different resource for the learning.
There are
So
some
it's-
specific programs like Math 180, Reading 180 that are like boosts of support for kids who
Okay,
are.
so it's really resources. Okay.
And I think there's an ethic there where you have students with the most qualified professionals.
Okay.
And
Yes.
you are pulling students out far less than what may have happened years ago.
Okay. So it's really resourcing it. Okay.
What's some other ideas? Any other ideas before we check out how some of this can come to life?
We were having a discussion, Jean and I, about LT, articulated learning goal for a lesson. So doesn't that exist today?
That does exist today. Do you want to say
Okay.
anything about
And that's like a.
Well, what I was thinking with the earlier discussion was that what we didn't ask was how do each of these build on the other. This is one sentence about learning targets and one sentence about standards-based learning, but as we get better and better at designing really meaningful learning targets, and as we get better and better in our standards-based practices, then they do feed into, they reduce the need for MTSS, they reduce the need for intervention because a lot of that intervention is actually happening within the classroom with the classroom teacher. Learning targets are different than, I'm not sure if you're thinking of standards.
No. You know, when I read the definition, it just says an articulated learning goal for a lesson.
So what a learning target is that's different than, for me, when I started teaching, I had a goal for that lesson.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a history teacher, and so I might want to be teaching students about how Africa was colonized. And with learning targets, what you're doing is articulating for that unit what is the skill, the outcome skill that you want for students, and then even within that unit for that particular lesson, what is the outcome for that student. So it kind of burrows down to what the skills are that you want for students in a way that's very different than the curriculum that I would have designed 20 some odd years ago.
Can I give an example of that?
Yep.
So here's how I think about when I started at CVU in 1999. On the first day I said, "What's my job?" to the outgoing English teacher, and she handed me 4 books. She said, "You're teaching Gilgamesh, now you're Romeo and Juliet, and something else."
One of the classics, okay,
Yeah.
the Odyssey.
And as we've evolved since 1999, I would hope never hear an English teacher say that their job is to teach these 4 books. Because I can be so much more precise in terms of the learning that I want my students to get. So while the content is important, for me, those 4 books, and I'm excited about those 4 books, they're a vehicle to help students learn purpose, organization, evidence analysis in writing, to learn how to seek evidence in reading, how to analyze that evidence, how to communicate articulately and clearly, so that it becomes, I as a teacher need to step back, and I can't just lecture on the Odyssey and Romeo and Juliet, which is incredibly boring for students at times. But if I'm sitting back and saying, okay, my job is to help them think critically, to see how they're communicating with one another, collaborating with one another, how they're developing as writers, I truly bring that into my core that I'm going to be measuring that, watching individual students grow in those areas, then I've really changed my teaching and I've changed the experience for kids. So that comes back to kind of like that MTSS piece where a lot of times in the past, kids were walking in and we were just slamming them with content. And now we're saying, no, it is my job to make sure that every kid in my class has this ability to be a powerful thinker, a powerful writer, a powerful reader, a powerful communicator. So that's something that's shifted a little bit and how these things don't overlap in the classroom.
And you'll see that, I think, more clearly when Adam shows you plays the video, but also when he shows you what the jump rope report looks like. So how we're designing curriculum so that we can really so that we can teach to the targets, and how those targets then inform our immediate instruction, and how all of those really tie to the proficiencies that we want all of our students to graduate with. So when you look at those and you still are looking for clarity, those examples would be
I just have to say this. Bill Krokel, a superintendent in our district, said it doesn't matter if you're teaching the Civil War or you're teaching, today in Afghanistan, whatever it is, it's what you want students to know. So conflict resolution is what you want to get out of this. You can use the content in a multiple area. So if I connect more with history, if I connect more with something else, it's a richer learning for me as a student, I think. And this was a long time ago that he said
was
these
way
things.
ahead of his time.
He really was in many ways.
And I think because of learning targets now, the first time we can start, so I have that knowledge of who that student is in my English class. Man, is it a shame when I boil all that down into an A, B, C, or D. And then when I pass that student on, and I don't share any of that knowledge with my colleagues. So that's where I think some of the PLP comes in. Or also have to give the student enough agency to share that and know that about themselves, most importantly. So what you'll see tonight are some of the systems we're developing so that we can share that information. We can create those bodies of evidence around our students in terms of the graduation standards and learning targets. So, and we'll just show this clip. We'll see how much we can get through, and then I know.
Our super meetings.
That's fun stuff.
You
want some cookies?
So again, this is Meredith Stetter, from Montpelier, just graduated 8th grade after working in a middle school classroom where they focused heavily on graduation standards, personal learning plans, learning targets, and tried to make the students' entire experience in a classroom be about kind of their growth as well.
Right in this room.
Yep. I haven't put the Chicago ad up yet. Oh.
One moment, talk amongst yourselves.
Inspirational.
You just seem to go by like that.
Right, right. I never saw Jess. Really? Yeah, she looked like she was really busy and I wasn't around much in the summer, so I was sorry to miss that.
Have Meredith come on and talk about her Well, we have a clicker thing, don't we? I'll start for you.
Hi everyone, my name is Meredith Stetter and I am a freshman at Montpelier High School. And I'm going to be talking about my experience with personalization and how that has transformed into the typical classroom style. FYI, I'm trying like a new presentation mode, so there might be a few kinks. So in fall 2013, I entered a multi-age classroom that was led by Dawn Taylor and Amy Kimball, and also one of your fellow teachers, Mr. Collick, over there.
And Rochambeau champion!
Thank you, Mr. Collick. So in that classroom, in the first couple months, we started a PLP project that was introduced to us in the form of a Google site.
Too soon?
No,
I was not a very good assistant.
okay, so this site, so right now this is the product that I created at the end of 8th grade. And I haven't edited since because I'm moving on to a different platform. But what it looked like is we were introduced to these 7 broader topics. So introduction or biography, which is all about you. Principles and values, so what you find important in your life and what you kind of go by, your main principles. And then community, so how you interact with the community. and any internships you might do, or how you feel that culture is connected. There's also citizenship, which is very closely tied to community. And we talked a lot about digital citizenship, which is, I think, a really huge challenge in schools right now, because we'd be collaborating on a presentation in class, and some kids would open the chat function and totally go off the page of what we're trying to do. And I think by focusing on citizenship through this platform, and more importantly, digital citizenship, that problem is resolved very effectively. There's also exploration, which is more talking about secondary schools that you're interested in. So whether that be like a technical school or a typical college, or any jobs that you see where your passions are, and how that can be relayed after high school and after middle school. And then your goals. So we set short-term goals, medium-term goals, and long-term goals, and those were all supported by specific steps. And then we have the evidence page. Actually, could you click on the evidence page? This is the one where, so in this page, you would provide a piece of media that you would create from any form of your life. So it could be from math class, writing, science, a sport that you might do. Like I play the cello, so I'll put a video of me playing on here. And then the really cool part is that you would provide this reflection. And usually it's about 2 paragraphs, but you have room to do that. And within your reflection, you would represent the learning standards that were in the rubric for that piece. So if it was, so this is my Canada trip essay, because we went to Canada and then we had a reflection piece. Some learning standards that I identified was the ability to complete quality work on time, because this was a very time-consuming project. So, if you could go back to that video. That's kind of a lot because it's really condensed, but that's how we created that platform. And then, so this all relates, you kind of start with a piece of media that's important in some way, shape, or form, and it doesn't have to be from school. There are some instances where Mr. Taylor or Ms. Kimball, the 2 named advisors, would say, this would be a really great thing to put on your POP and reflect on. And then they might give us some standards and we would go from there. But it doesn't have to be like that, so you can choose anything from your range of life.
Yeah, and that's why we're filming Meredith this morning, so that she can link this experience to her PLP to talk about how she's doing her communication standard.
Definitely. So and you find which page that kind of piece of media fits under. So whether it be related to your community or citizenship, and it can go on multiple pages. It's not like set in stone, like, oh, I'm doing a writing piece that has to go in my evidence section. And then you do the reflection. So you talk about what was important and so on. And within that reflection, we briefly mentioned the learning standards. And can you go to the next slide? So the learning standards are really how you could, the kind of parallel to a graduation standard. So if any school really were to decide a set of graduation requirements, those could be identified within the student's reflection of a piece of media. And I think that's what, so now I'm at MHS in Clear High School, and that's what we're trying to do over there. So that's kind of the parallel between those 2. And yeah, so these are the MHS learning expectations that you worked a lot on and are being introduced to the classes at MHS now. And these are the things that could be represented in that piece of reflection if that was the form you wish to take. So these are also like the transferable skills. So you basically, the way our new principal explained it, we talked about this too.
He's so perfect, I get it.
So basically, if you were to have any occupation or any challenge that you see in your life after high school or anywhere, you could have these skills down and you'd be fine. You wouldn't necessarily need to have your multiplication facts memorized if you had your persistence and accountability down. So these are really important and can be incorporated into that reflection piece. Let me see where I am. Next slide. Going down. Rolling. So I guess what's really important about this entire concept of reflection-based and through those 7 concepts of the different pages is that it's really important for students to have their own experiences while still connecting to the broader concept of school. So I think it's really easy to kind of conform to my English teacher calls it the institution. So like, he's really, yeah, he's great. So it's really easy to just get caught up and be kind of one of the crowd. But I think this kind of format really lets students have their own experiences and still connect to that institution in a way that works for them. So that can be on different.
We'll just pause there. So it was fun for me. I felt a little strange having a Montpelier High School student come, but what I wanted the faculty to see was, first of all, this 14-year-old who was standing up in front of 100 plus people and articulately describing her learning in ways that I've seen our legislators struggle to do. I don't mean that as a front, but
except for John.
not you. But to see, I think it was fun for me to, I've known her for a couple of years, to see her evolve in terms of this, to go from this 7th grader who, in 9th grade, quite frankly, she's passing her grad challenge communication standard right there. And I think partly it's her, I also think partly it's the number of times she's reflected, the number of times she's made meaning of her learning and taken learning from the external, bringing it in and thinking about how it makes a difference to her goals, her life, and what she wants to do. So this goes on for about 40 more minutes, and to hear the faculty questions, I had to like shut people up to get them. I mean, I was like, stop asking you, like, we need to let Meredith go. She has to go to school. And the faculty gave her a standing ovation, I think, partly just because they were impressed with her ability to present. But when people asked her questions, she was such an active listener and was so thoughtful. She would rephrase questions, and it was clear the depth of knowledge that she had about herself as a learner, and I think about learning in general as a result. And that came from 2 teachers in her school taking a risk to say, all right, let's look at what the high school's graduation standards are, let's build learning targets off of those, let's build a PLP or a vehicle so the student can reflect on the evidence that she's getting in class, and let's trust her and speak to the adult within her. So that was fun. So I know we're kind of going over here, and I just wanted to, any questions or thoughts before we transition out of this?
I'm so struck with the questions or the ideas that we are asking from young people to reflect on their learning, to set goals. It certainly didn't happen when I was in school, or when you were in school with my own kids, and it was just beginning to ask kids, well, set a goal. That nobody ever said that, or reflect on what it means. And, it's asking for a certain amount of self reflection and identification that is very unusual. It's very good.
I would also add it's a must right now. I think we can no longer continue to send kids on to college and say, hey, go get a liberal arts education, everything's going to be fine, you'll figure it out at some point. I mean, when we have 44% of our, nationally, our college students not making it in 5 years, when they're graduating with, I think, an average of $40,000 of debt, and still not having experience of being out in the work world or being out in the community, that saddens me because I know that we can do that at high school level. And so when you hear me talk about things like flexible pathways, PLPs, it's about getting kids to reflect so that when they go out and they walk across the stage of graduation, they're powerful in our skills, but they also have a sense of yeah, I don't like dentistry, or I do, or I am.
Here they
interested in
are,
that.
you know, in some ways, it's a very individual situation. It's good. It's
Could we
really
watch
amazing.
the rest of that at, like, could you send, can we have a link, or?
Sure, yeah.
That'd be
absolutely.
great, I would like to watch
When the
it.
link works.
Yeah, when.
So this might be naive, because, you know, we didn't talk about this in the K-8 schools, but so do standard-based learning and standard-based grading make sense without a PLP? Like, is it meaningful for the kids if they don't have something that makes them reflect back on it? Is it meaningful?
I think it is if you are, I think you do get gains when teachers are forced to articulate their learning in terms of learning targets and are upfront with students about, this is what we are hoping you get. I'm going to pay attention to make sure that you get it. It's not going to be a mystery. I'm not going to, you know, like, I'm not just filling up 45 minutes because I've got this block of time in front of me for after the school. So I think that, yes, standards-based learning makes sense even beyond a framework, but if you, it's just a no-brainer to have a larger framework. I mean, we've got to be working together as a district. You know, I mean, this is a K-12 experience here, and I think at the high school level, we've got to be really thoughtful about what our graduation standards are, because over 4 years, yeah, you kind of get towards them, but the K-8 schools do, you know. That's where a lot of the powerful skill stuff happens for kids. So.
Adam, how does all of this play out for when they apply to colleges? Like, how does the college boards review PLPs and flexible class, and like, what will they look at? You know,
It really depends on the institution. I know that there was a move across the state last year to have, I think as many kind of local colleges sign on to say, we will honor this, we will look at this. But the reality is, I think when, you know, some of the bigger institutions across the country, are they going to take the time to look at PLPs? I don't know. My hope is that the product of working on this is a student who shines and stands out because of the efforts they put into a PLP. But you've also got, I mean, in terms of jobs, in terms of, you know, you've got a kind of an electronic live resume there that's meaningful. So.
First of all, are you okay if we go to 8:30? So I think we can get to the rest of the agenda.
That's fine.
So I don't have the freshmen. What's this PLP process look like for a freshman?
That's a great question.
Thank you. I love that you said that.
Yeah.
We had our first PLP meetings today. Actually, I don't know if you met with one of your freshmen.
Yeah, I did. It was awesome.
I met with 2 of mine, and it was such a different conversation. And then I went to a student social studies meeting, and the teachers there were talking about how, and we should let Patty know this, but how the survey and the difference that we put into the survey from the PLP work generated a different level of conversation with students. So
what survey?
We've been doing MAPS 9 for years, where students kind of filled out, what do I like, what don't I like, and the way the survey was designed. So now it's an electronics MAP 9.
It's in Naviance now.
It's in Naviance now, but the questions and the thinking about the questions that the PLP committee did to create this MAP 9 survey just led to a whole different level of conversation. You're talking about kids being reflective about what they want, and I was talking to one of my guys one of my freshman boys, and we got to the level of, so I like geometry and I like science, and we were delving down into what does that mean? You know, what's the traditional path that you think people might take? And he was talking about wanting, a club that he might do that's connected to this passion that he already has, and we're, not even a quarter into school yet, and he's thinking forward differently. And both of the students I met with today had the same experience. And I think that ties in with the thinking they're doing about learning in class. So when they're really thinking about their learning in class, that shows in conversations with the advisories, and that's a result of a lot of the SBL work that the core teachers have done, and other teachers.
And I'd also say that we now have, I'm sure Jeff shared this with you last year, in the creation of the graduation standards. So we now have a framework to put up to our PLPs. You've heard about the ESLs for years. ESLs are great in terms of helping us progress as an institution, but when you have 15 ESLs that break into 15 subcategories, it becomes a little bit unwieldy. So I think the work of consolidating that, the important discussion of what do we really value as a learning organization, those discussions happened last year. I actually have some copies of the graduation standards in a different form than you've seen before. But that helps us create a PLP that matters, but we're at the infancy stages of this. I mean, this is, we have a half-day scheduled in June, actually, see how that goes, for all of our advisors to meet with their ninth graders cohort in their advisory, parents, and to have the student presenting kind of the body of evidence that mattered to them this year in terms of their work that help them grow as learners, their values, their interests, those types of things. So we're bringing parents in the process as early and as meaningfully as we can too.
Does anyone have any more questions?
Thanks. Sorry that went on so long, but I was having fun, so.
As long as you're having fun.
Okay.
It's all about you, Adam.
Thank you. And thanks for the game.
You want to bring it home and play it home? Go right ahead.
I took the cheat sheet with me too.
Yeah? Oh, yeah.
I think we are going to move on to 5.0 reports to the board. The reason I just left 5.1 Act 46 Study Committee, you should have all at least seen the email that came out from Sandy yesterday, which was the minutes to the last meeting for this Act 46 Study Committee. The other thing is in November, when we have our regular meeting, I think it's November 17th, we are going to do the same thing again, where we are going to break out into our individual boards so we can at least get an update from our town, where our town board is sitting on these on this committee. And if need be, if we're still talking about this study committee, we will probably do the same in February. We will not have any. Well, Jean, do you think they're going to have reports? Are you meeting during the budget season?
I'm sure there'll be, well, we're only scheduled to the end of November.
Okay.
I'm sure we'll still have work to do.
Right. I would say just keep an eye out from your emails that Sandy, if she has any minutes coming out, and we should, just be aware that this important work is going on. Does anyone have any other questions about this study committee? I'm curious, did you find it informative when you broke out? Unfortunately, the Williston group couldn't break out.
Well, the timing was such, I got more out of CSSU than I did sitting in the Charlotte, because I didn't have much time and it was all repetitive, and we were there. You also heard the CSSU.
I didn't. But
Oh, okay. Yeah. So
well, I think it will be.
I think
it's
right now I think it's just because there's not a whole lot of content. It's just like this. We've set up our subcommittees instead of probably by next month you'll be hearing this is the financial implications. These are the assets and liabilities. This is how we're going to the community, and that's where I think the community discussion will be more valuable.
Right. Okay. Does anyone have any other questions on this? I'd like to move on to 5.2. Adam, you are up again. Principal's report.
I'm going to keep it quick this time.
You can't, it's so meaty. You got so much stuff in here.
I can make them shorter.
No, this is great.
So I'm going to focus on just two items and then give you the chance to ask me some questions about the other items that are there. Since I have Catherine here and I want her to be able to go home at some point tonight, I want to talk about reporting, which is on page 3 of the actually 2 of the report. Okay. And so we made the decision school-wide to leave GradeQuick behind, which was our former reporting system for grades, and move to a piece of software called Jump Rope, which some teachers have been using for the past 2 years. Is that fair to say? and more are using this year, but not all are using. So the decision to, a top-down decision that we need to have one reporting system was received with varying degrees of gratitude from teachers, but I did want to have Catherine highlight a couple of items tonight about, and I'll help you, about why we're moving to jump rope and some of the functionality it gives us in the context of our last discussion. So just to give a quick backdrop for what Catherine's going to show you. Strangely enough, last week I was meeting one-on-one with one of my upperclassmen advisees, and because we're in sort of this funny place where we don't have interim reports anymore, as an advisor I was really frustrated because I wanted some information from the system about how my student was doing. So obviously I went to him first, and we had a good dialogue. And you know, his response to me was, well, I'm struggling in geometry, really like life team sports, and you know, he just wasn't feeling great about the beginning of the year. So I just happened to mention it to Stan Williams, who's one of our instructional coaches, in the afternoon. And he said, well, let's see what's on jump rope, just because some of his teachers are using it. So he opens up this program, and Catherine's going to actually got one of her students to give her permission to share. Or is it freeze? So if you just type in a student, you got it.
I got it. So this is my advisory, so I can go through my advisory and see how all of my cherubs are doing. The student that I thought had an interesting report is one of my sophomores, Preston Webb, and he gave me permission to share this with you folks. And so this is one of the screens that you would see, just a quick look at how students are doing. How's Preston doing?
Pretty good.
Pretty good. Pretty good. Thanks, Jason. All right. So this gives you an idea. It looks like he's sort of like maybe you would get from an interim report that would say would be a P that they're passing, or a letter grade that would tell you, oh, they're doing fine, and you don't look any further.
My advisor's report looked different than this. Because the geometry class wasn't, the score was about a 1, and it was kind of in bright red here, so my attention was immediately.
And I have an advisee who is in a similar situation, sort of for different reasons. But so when I look at Preston's, I thought all's going well, still going well. And then this is where you get to, Kathy, where you get to the kind of explicit, how explicit the learning targets are. So I can see exactly where Preston is having some challenges. So when I talked to him today about whether I could show this, the conversation wasn't, hey, you seem to be doing great, mind if I show you jump rope? The conversation was, I was looking at your jump rope report, and it said that you're having trouble with interpreting optimal solutions, which doesn't roll off my tongue because it's math related. But he said, yeah, I don't know why that is. I went back to his last year's math class to see if he was having similar issues with kind of similar concepts in math, which is further than I'll go with you folks tonight. But that gave me it's a conversation starter with Preston, as opposed to, hey, you got all these, you're doing great. What is it that's challenging about this particular skill?
So again, when we think also about PLP, this is instead of, I mean, anytime you're boiling learning into numbers, whether it's 86.2s or Bs or As or Cs, you know, it's symbolic. It's the important thing is the discussion of the evidence. What does it mean? Right. What's happening here?
Parents are not getting that.
They could, but we don't want to open the portal, as it's called, the jump rope. So, you know, many of our students do have this, but because some teachers are using it, not all teachers, some people are using it well, some need some more training. that we're at a place where, you know, we first had to start with, here's the decision, we're all moving in this direction. Now it's on us to make sure that we have the professional development to do this well, and people aren't incredibly overwhelmed by it.
So is there a timeline for that to happen?
Next year, August, everyone's on it. Now, there are going to be some challenges with this, though. I mean,
And next year, August, we have some choices to make, whether parents would see this level of specificity, or if they would just see what assignments are missing within a particular framework. So if you look at this, the U that you see, it's in blue down here, this is something that there's no evidence of, so that's something that's incomplete. So again, as a parent or an advisor, that cues me to ask that specific question. It also cues me, like with some of the things where Preston's doing really well, you seem to really like that, or that seems to be a skill that you have. So it leads to different conversations, or it has led to different conversations just in the past couple of weeks than you would have if you had gotten an interim report, where I used to highlight my interim reports in areas that I was concerned and areas where kids were really excelling. This will be a different conversation, I think, with students, a more helpful conversation.
can we show the graduation standard view?
Yes.
So here's the one last piece that I think's pretty interesting. So we talk about graduation standards. Now keep in mind, these are the school's graduation standards, but they are, they're not like the senior graduation level. This is a sophomore who's working on these same standards in their sophomore year. So if you click on one of these standards, the cool thing, and we need to do a lot of work on this, teachers are now tagging learning targets that feed into a student learning a graduation standard, so that we can have students reflecting on the graduation standards based on a body of on a more robust body of evidence than just here are some rubrics and a piece of paper that the school says is important. No, this is how your teacher's defining it, and this is what it might look like in a classroom level. We have a lot of work to do to make sure that that has some integrity, because it doesn't really have integrity right now, because we all have different definitions of what the graduation standards mean.
Will students be able to see this?
Students, yes.
Okay.
Students, I'm not sure how much they get the reports now, which is not at the same level that I just showed you. So.
Our ninth graders are getting this, right?
Anybody who's using jump rope for tracking and reporting gets jump rope reports. So I don't know.
We're getting.
You would have gotten probably from some of Izzy's sophomore teachers and all of
my freshmen.
Clark's.
Do you get this level?
Well, I can't. They're usually about 10, but I don't because you can't like click on one and open it down lower. But it starts with about 10. I can't read what.
These are the graduation standards, so you would get something like that.
But you also have the habits of learning at the bottom. If you remember talking about that.
So think about what a change this is, though, for teachers, for parents, for students who are used to, an 89%, or here are the points I've created for this one test. Where I mean, it's a very different look, and it's a challenge to unlearn some things to move more towards this type of standards-based learning.
So can I ask a question? So when you had the discussion on, the modeling, and it was an area that needed work, so is that an area where intervention would be? The term intervention, where you would say, it's a good conversation with a math teacher or a tutor, or?
It might eventually be that. It won't be that in this case with Preston. It will likely be a conversation that he will have with Carly, because when Carly sees, get rid of everything else. When Carly sees that, then she's going to know what Preston is challenged with right now, and that will lead her to differentiate her instruction, so that if Preston doesn't necessarily need support here or more practice here. This is where he needs practice, or he needs to have, he needs to increase his
So that's where the
understanding.
PLP would.
That's more just standards-based
Standards.
learning. That's what should be happening in the classrooms, that when you collect formative data on students, you're going to know pretty quickly who's struggling in which areas, and then you can redesign instruction to meet those specific needs.
Pretty strong visual cue as a teacher, though. When you're seeing that, it's like, I think I'll just ignore, well, let's move on to the next unit. But I know, it's hard to ignore that.
There's another one that I don't have permission to show you, but another student who, I run the EST for Snelling Corps, and we were just looking at jump rope just to see how our students are doing. Again, we don't get progress reports. And when we looked at first, it looked like she was doing okay, and a quick digging down showed that really there's, this student has missed an awful lot of school, and there's just not evidence for how she's doing, so there's really limited evidence, and that's a pretty big red flag that there needs to be some investigation into why that's happening.
Cool.
To be able to get this kind of information out, to drill down like this and see these details, does that mean our teachers are spending an awful lot of time inputting the data into jump rope, or is it easy, or how is it?
Monica Carter, one of our instructional coaches, came and showed the leadership team how much time it takes to input a target and put data in for a particular assessment, and it's again, like Adam said, it's different than the way we have done it in the past. It doesn't necessarily take more work. It's just a different approach that teachers need to use. And as soon as teachers become more comfortable with this, it's not going to add time to the work that they're doing.
Well, I think what adds time is taking one assessment and looking at different, it's not just like you got it right or wrong and it adds up to a 94.
Right.
It's like you have this, you did well on this standard, and this standard you're struggling with, and this standard something else, and now you have 3 grades for one assessment for 100 kids.
You have, right, you have.
Not grades, but, you know, some.
And so you may think about your assessing your formatives and summatives differently. And again, it's hard to take the mode that most of us are familiar with and kind of mesh that with a standards-based grading approach. It's really it's a very different approach. A lot of our teachers are doing a fantastic job with it.
And my guess is that as a system and as a board, you probably wouldn't love it if I said, okay, next year we're going completely standards-based and we have no grades, because there would be a community uproar around that. But you would like it. But when you start taking, all these different standards and mashing them into one grade and having to figure out how does this convert over to an A, B, C, and there's conversion software within this program, so it's relatively easy. But again, you start having some of these, like, you're between two systems, and it gets challenging. That's the place we are, and that's where we are statewide, and in many states in this country, where we're thinking about moving away from Carnegie units and seat time to something a little more, I don't know, I would say progressive and thoughtful, but people might disagree with that.
My question was Jeff's, the amount of time, but I don't know what you as teachers are looking at to enter that. Are you like tests or participation? Help me with that.
Or is it online
I'm drawing a
learning?
blank.
Or is it online learning and quizzes? The students are entering tests right online?
So for this target right here, this check-in, this formative check-in is what Preston struggled with. So this is maybe a 15-minute little check-in in class that he wasn't able to, that he didn't show competency in. So
It could be that you can, you have to be thoughtful about how you're structuring your summative assessments or tests, so that you have to you can't just ask random questions. It's like those questions have got to be tied to a learning target. and they've got to be on there for a reason and for a purpose to give you feedback. So it's different.
PLP is now a gigantic shift in grading systems. Those are huge. Is it too much?
I would say the shift in the grading system, I mean, you heard me say, this program's been around for a couple years and being used intermittently. I look at the work that CVU did last year and the year before, and I think there was some of the pushback that the teachers and the administration went through, and some of those struggles, along with the students and parents trying to figure out what does the standards-based learning mean. I think that was a lot of the very difficult conceptual work that happened last year. So when I sent this decision out, and can be Peter here actually, because we hear some of the concerns, but I'm not going to put him on the spot. Don't want him to be on the spot. So I sent out emails and said, listen, I'm putting my decision in writing so that you can see all my thinking behind it. I know that some people are going to be concerned by this, you're going to be nervous about it. I want you to come to my office, talk to me during these times. I'm opening this whole day up so you can come in and talk to me about it. I only had one person come in, which I thought was interesting. It was a really thoughtful discussion and great questions. So that's one piece of evidence that suggests to me that it's not too overwhelming at this point, but it is a stretch. And PLPs have been around at CVU for a long time. We call them MAPS 9. The question is, how do you just make it more meaningful? So, but the point is well taken. I mean, we need to be really thoughtful about how we move forward as an organization, because when people get overwhelmed, you know, few things happen.
But the PLP piece, today, tomorrow, and Thursday are MAPS 9 meetings with our freshmen. We would have had those in the past. It was more exciting today, but it wasn't more work on the part of the teachers or the kids.
Yeah, I mean, truthfully, I would have waited some time before making this decision. I will tell you that there are a good number of teachers who are like, please make this decision so that we know where to invest our energies. Because Grade Quick, our former system, doesn't even exist anymore. Our middle schools are all moving to this. You know, we get going and do your job. So that's not everybody saying that. But good?
Yep. Any more questions for Adam? Nope.
And
you have a hand up?
this or on his report in general?
Oh, that was just one thing. You have more to talk about.
You have more to talk about on your report, right?
I was only going to share the security survey, and then I knew that was going to take some time, so I would just open up to questions after that.
Okay.
Or the safety survey.
Yeah, because I saw you have security here.
So this is a survey that went out to our faculty and students. So take one and pass it around. And this is a survey that went out to our parents. We can take one and pass it around. And I think if they move this way, you should end up with two.
I have two different ones.
Two different.
Tough to cross over.
Yeah, that would be you, Bob. Oh, maybe not.
Nope, rates might be different.
That next one here.
Oops. Bob, it's you. It's on you.
Interesting.
Move on. You got it.
So this is background. This has come up a few times with the board, you know, starting with, it always seems to happen right after some horrible thing has happened in the world. And I don't know how far back, but when Sean was here, he picked up, we try very hard to have a culture, CVU culture, and making sure that we respect that when we make decisions for the school. And he had started with a survey, and a parent survey, and kid survey, and I don't think we ever actually quite got back to it.
No, we never did.
And then, you know, we didn't, Jeff had enough on his plate, so, but then again, with more issues coming up every day, and not just for the safety of the kids, but with the recent tragedy with the children and family, worker, decided we really need to take a BCF, take a bigger, broader view, so Adam was good enough to jump in and revisit it for us.
Yeah, I think this all first came into play after Sandy Hook.
So what I understood from the last board meeting was that you wanted some feedback from the safety committee and from faculty and students and parents. So what I did was I just met with the safety committee and said, what are some items that would be good for the board to think about? Let's send those items out, and the results are here. I'll let you ask questions or do analysis of your own.
There's a remarkable consistency between the two surveys in a number of areas, particularly the clear the halls and some of the school procedures. Really similar results.
I was very pleased that students and faculty said, when I hear clear the halls, I know what to do, that was up around 98%.
Yeah, it's really high.
I did not
We know
expect that.
Yeah, so they're very consistent about this.
Who says that? Who says clear the hall?
I do.
Is that fact? Okay.
Yeah. So what we did was we had a drill this year where when I instruct clear the halls, I talk people through it over the intercom. Okay. So, it's a clear the halls, and then everyone immediately has sort of like this muscle memory response where the doors are closed, lights off, corner of a room.
Yeah, I just have to ask. I would think that when said, do you know what it means to, when you say clear the halls, I would say, yeah, clear the halls.
Yeah, I know what that means. What do I know what to do?
Well, don't they have to hide?
But this is what to do, which is not, yeah.
And they've been doing it all through the
Yeah.
right? For how long?
So I guess now that we have some data, how are we going to act on some of this?
I guess we wouldn't decide today.
No, we won't.
Well, one piece of action I was hoping for was to have a member of the board join the safety committee, and I know that's on the agenda for later.
Yes, it's an action item for
Who's
later.
on the safety committee now?
Right now it's...
I mean, like faculty, staff, I need names.
Faculty, staff, also fire chief, police, and we have sometimes like EMS will show up.
Yeah, any students?
And students, yeah.
And how old is this data?
This data is brand new.
It's brand new.
This is from, I just got this.
Just got it.
I just did the survey last week.
Pretty good rate of return, it's not a bad rate for such a short period of time.
This is just a random question, but it kind of all came together, right? Because we just gave the seniors their privileges to leave, and one of our policies is a duty of care. So when our kids leave campus and something happens at the school, who's responsible for the kids that are on their pre-block?
When a kid leaves school.
Yeah, so say a kid takes their free block and is down at Ballard's, right? And something happens at the school, like there is a real clear the halls.
Right, and then they're coming back on campus.
Right. Whose responsibility, I assume with our duty of care of students, how do we deal with that?
We don't. I mean, I think they come back. I mean, my hope is some schools have done is they have a light on the outside of the building that goes on in case people can't hear the announcement. So there's a visual cue when they're coming on campus. I'll tell you from the threat that we had at Montpelier that was like a threat of a live shooter. The police officers with AR-15 standing at the entrance of the school was making a visual trail. Although, there is some danger, and there was a reporter who ran across and nearly got himself in some...
Many years ago, when I was teaching science, I took my science class outside, and we were doing whatever it was we were doing, and we came back in towards the 10 minutes left in the period. We're in the classroom, and I'm thinking, gee, it's awful quiet. Nobody in the hallway. Look in the next classroom, nobody in that room. Look across, nobody in that classroom. Finally, I got a hold of some. Oh, there's a bomb threat in the school. Everybody's supposed to evacuate. Oh.
Yeah. Well, we also have two buttons that we can press that instantaneously lock all the external doors that are open. So
you'd be locked out.
Theoretically, a person couldn't get in when they're
do you have a texting system or a alert system that you could?
Yeah, I mean, we have Blackboard Connect, right. So that we can send out texts, phone messages, and email
Does the
distances.
system in this school connect to your outbuilding where you have classrooms, just across the parking lot?
Yes, but there are glitches with that once in a while.
Okay.
That's a good question.
And also that system I know goes to the parents. Does that system, the robocalls go to the students?
I'm not sure. I would hope so. I mean, it depends how much, I mean, certainly we could if we had the data of students giving us their phone numbers. I just don't know if we have that data right now.
Well, I would love to have an opportunity to kind of digest this more.
Yeah.
And then, Adam, do you want to, I mean, I don't know, what's it? Do you want to come back with a recommendation, or should we talk about it?
Yeah, well,
The
I
Safety
think-
committee come back with a recommendation?
I wonder if, I mean,
There's some interesting writing comments.
yeah, I cut off some of the comments. I just, we didn't have enough paper to print them all out. My hope is that we are going to discuss this at the next safety committee, and if a board member chooses to join us there, maybe that board member gives a report out, like with other. I mean, I can give you some guesses as to where this is headed, but that might be time intensive.
And when is the safety committee meeting? Will you send that to Paul?
It's a monthly meeting.
Well, if somebody from later in our action matters, if somebody wants to join that committee, then you would probably be in direct contact with the group.
It's just a matter of time.
Right.
During the business day or.
Yeah.
Always are.
Yeah, it is during the typical work day.
Thank you, Adam, for doing this. Does anyone have any last questions for this on safety? Yes.
Did we have lights on? I'm sorry. Did we have lights on in the parking lot? I was
Yes,
worried.
we do.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, I nearly killed myself the last time.
Last time was tough.
When our HR director of the district is calling me and saying, hey, I can't find my car because it's too dark out, I decided to pay attention to that.
Right.
Could she rules change forward?
Yeah.
You know, one of the statements here is that some of the best security is us knowing our people, and I really think that's important. The culture, the tone of a building is important. And cameras and metal detectors and that stuff, I have a strong feeling. Certainly want people safe, but there are many ways of being safe. A camera does not make me safe. So just in that, I don't have.
The speed of light's faster than the speed of a bullet.
Yeah, I don't have time to join that, but I think it's an important committee and conversations that I know you'll have.
Yes, Lorna.
I feel like time's short, but I do want to get back to two things that were on your report, or just so that I paid attention to it. One was the looking to discontinue his relationship with the National Honor Society. I thought that was an interesting situation, and I'm worthy of maybe thoughts about that. The other one is the one below that, which is putting together a committee to determine the pros and cons of our relationship with NEASC. Because I remember last time it was a big deal, the whole NEASC, and it was like important that we have this and do this, and every 10 years and we're in.
Well, you want to be an accredited high school, right? So that was
You
my
wanted to be
question to Adam, was
accredited
like,
in
what's
high
the-
school, and we certainly don't want to lose that, and I don't know what the pros and cons are of that, but I feel like each one of those is
Who's on-
worthy of.
Who's on that NEAS committee?
Who is on that NEAS committee? No one yet. So that was, I mean, this was a start. I assume that this was talked about in the board last year.
It was.
Yep.
It was, okay.
So it wasn't talked about, I mean, Jeff brought it up as something he was considering.
Yeah.
Well, there were a
Right, we
couple of
did-
us who even were talking about whether to be on that committee or not, and then the committee didn't meet.
Right.
Okay.
So here's the plan that I've put together. I don't have a lot more capacity in my ability to do more work right now. So what I've done is I've outsourced the organization of getting all the information around NEASC in terms of the pros and cons, what are the other institutions that one would be accredited by, or that would be deemed acceptable by universities and higher ed. So once that person comes back with that information, I'm going to put together a focus group of students, parents, teachers, hopefully a board member or two, and talk about what we see, and then from that group, bring that information to the board for a board discussion.
So you're looking springtime-ish on this, probably?
We may have to move, I've got
When
the.
do we have to have when will we have to have it if we want to stay with them? It's gonna be coming up.
It's coming up. We have our, luckily they're doing a reorg right now too, because there are many, many schools that have decided not to use NEASC anymore. Partly because it's so expensive, and partly because it's an onerous process, and partly because, you know, there are just so many different places that you can get those school standards for free. Like Global Best Practices, the state of Vermont is developing a system right now of monitoring schools in a NEASC-like process that's not so intensive. So.
When you say it's expensive, what are you talking about?
So we pay, I mean, I probably just shouldn't be throwing numbers at you, but so take this with us.
Just give me
I think it's like $10,000 a year.
That's expensive.
And then the site.
For each year.
Yep, and then the site visit itself can be upwards of, if you were to add in the hours that go into that, the site visits,
right.
You're in, I would guess, I don't want to say $100,000, but probably $100,000 when you put all the expenses together. So.
Okay, so.
And everything in the building
Just some
stops.
idea of, yeah, right. It seemed like there was an enormous amount of effort and that we should be paid to do that.
Right. Instead of us, yeah. So there are there are other, I know Virgin's dropped NEASC. I know, I think a lot of principals like NEASC because it gives them the leverage to say to their faculty, see, other people are saying this, that this initiative is important too.
Right.
I'm not sure that we need that here, but. And then,
National Honor Society.
Sure, so.
One quick question, would we not be eligible for any grants or anything if we weren't accredited by NEASC or an equivalent?
Yeah, I don't want to say for sure. I doubt it.
Okay.
I think we'd be fine.
Yeah.
I think the only thing that gets a little stranger is like an NCAA scholarship look for students. But
That would be good. Thanks.
yeah, could be big for some people. So NHS. I tried to be clear in the writing here. Some of the NHS bylaws don't jive with how we like to think about our students. And if I were to show you the number of students who were rejected by NHS last year, or by even our faculty council, because of their character and leadership, because they're not demonstrating enough character and leadership qualities, I think I find that concerning. I know our faculty finds it concerning based on the fact that no one wanted to be an NHS advisor this year. So we put it out, we posted the position, and the same thing happened to me in Montpelier in my first year, where Montpelier we got rid of NHS because of similar reasons. It was sort of odd where I was like, not again. But I don't want to put it on the faculty. The reality is that I think NHS actually does their students a disservice at this point, because we're judging them on not just, say, an academic mark, but on leadership and character that is often thinly, it's thinly veiled in certain activities that students might do. It's just there isn't a really meaningful way of judging that in students. And absent of that evidence, when we're rejecting students because we don't have that evidence, those students are actually a disservice in the college application process. So, I have some personal feelings on it, but the bylaws also require a faculty member to run it, which makes it challenging.
Well, this is one of those things that wouldn't hurt kids if we did not have it as a school.
Right.
Right. I do remember it being more than vaguely subjective when my kids went through it too. I do think that we don't do enough as a school to encourage all kids to do actually service.
Yeah.
Some kids do, and this does take a set of kids that maybe even if they're coerced, sometimes you start doing the service work, you do more of it. So I would like to.
I'm glad you said that, and I don't mean to interrupt, but, so we met with NHS students and said, hey, we're in this position where we're thinking about discontinuing this. Why did you want to do this? And it was awesome. The responses were, we want to do service, or we want to get into college, or we want to be recognized for the fact that we have worked hard. And that a lot of times we aren't recognized for that, and there should be a venue for us to be recognized. So we've asked the students in NHS this year to design what a CVU academic honors program would look like, and that's sort of their service project for the seniors this year, so that we weren't just, I mean, Catherine was willing to do this, you know, without any pay this year and run NHS, so that we weren't pulling the rug out from under this year's seniors, so that we actually could get something into place for next year that's a little more homegrown.
Now, would it be detrimental to our students if they don't have the NHS and they're going up against competition for other colleges and they do not?
No, we did the research on that in Montpelier, so I can just kind of like bring it back here. It's a little bit like schools that don't have AP classes. So if your school doesn't offer it, it's not held against you. And so if the school doesn't offer an NHS, it's not held against students. That's what colleges say. I mean, I hope that's true.
I know my kids have said that they like NHS. They think the GPA should actually be higher. They think it's too easy, and that it should, if it's truly based on academic excellence, the GPA should be higher.
I'll second that. My daughter said that it's recognition for the work.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's important. We need to do that.
Yeah.
So we'll go back, I guess.
Yes.
So do we have any other questions on Adam's report to the board? There.
Ask about all the letters to the procedure. This is that.
Oh, we should have asked that a little bit earlier. Kathy and I were talking ahead of time a little bit. It should have been on. We probably should have brought it in when we talked about adjustments to the agenda. We all got a note from a parent with a concern, and I thought we just wanted understanding that we have a policy for this. That if a parent has a concern with the teacher, that there is it goes up through the teacher, the leadership, superintendent, and then it comes to the board. So this board, because it hasn't risen to that level, it's not a board discussion about the incident. We were just, I think, looking for a little, has it been, where is it in the process? Is it being dealt with?
I believe the situation is resolved.
I thought it was resolved.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks.
That's closure.
Yeah. And I think resolved in a happy way.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
It wasn't like resolved.
Everyone
I mean,
seemed so happy with
yeah, it seemed like it was a good discussion.
Okay. Any other questions for Adam on his report? Because I'd like to kind of move along here.
Yeah, you're way behind, Paul.
I know I am.
It's my fault.
Let's go. I should have offered to be timekeeper, and I was going to, and it would be a lot tougher.
I didn't know that the jump rope thing was going to take so long. So we can take one.
So let's go on to 5.3, the operations and maintenance 3 to 5 year plan. I do not have copies of it. It was sent to you in an email last week, I think.
I have copies of it.
Oh, good. Thank you.
That
What's
looked
that? You're
like
not
the right
getting
document.
I missed one today.
You want me to help you move
Absolutely.
right along with this one?
Yes.
So this one is to you. Kurt has taken a shot at telling you what he thinks should be in the next 5-year plan by project. No great change from last processes. The board facility committee / finance committee has not had an opportunity to discuss things with Kurt. So this will come back to you in the form of possible board action for changes to the operations and maintenance budget, an article or a drawdown from your construction fund. But it really, it'd be premature for you to have a lengthy conversation here tonight. The next conversation is Kurt with the Facilities and Finance Committee.
Okay. Anything else? Thank you, Bob, for being so brief. And anyone have any other questions on this? Just give people an opportunity. Let's move on to 5.4, the CSSU debrief.
Many of the things were on our agenda as well. We talked briefly about was allowable growth on our numbers. the allowable growth percentage, which is the, came out of the legislature about, I don't have the numbers in front of me now.
It was in the Colt report in your packet.
Yeah. So that's the tricky budget number that we're gonna have to address this year. It's about 2.5% for CVU on a per pupil basis. Since they're changing the way they calculate the tax rate, I'm not 100% sure I have this right, but unfortunately, as you know, we had a big decrease in students. So my calculations, which are probably roughly correct, say that out of the 2.5%, 1.5% is going to be eaten up by our drop in students, which would say that we only have about a 1% headroom on the budget. So just to kind of put things in perspective, it's gonna be a tough budget year. Yeah. And until we see the baseline, I don't know how tough. I mean, last year we ended up with a negative number on our baseline, so that was great. But you know, yeah, it is. We are kind of thinking all possible thoughts about how to keep that number down.
And Lynn, I think you asked me a question before.
I just was curious if, you know, I know we're all one big happy family, but recognizing that Charlotte also has a ridiculously small increase, and knowing that the CSSU budget is actually done before we get into decision packets and things like that, I wondered if CSSU was not putting forth decision packets or kind of keeping to the same cap mentality as the rest of us. I guess I'm just thinking I would hate to have a board decide on a decision packet before individual boards have had a chance to delve in, and that those decision packets from the SU board might diminish our ability to add things even more. Am I making any sense?
Yes, you are. I'm not a member of the CSSU board, but I believe they all share your same interest with an expectation that the CSSU board work will clearly understand the context with which we all are in.
So more in parallel.
And I know of no decision packets yet that I've been made aware of that would increase the budget that are, but I might not be in the loop with like what others are considering. Right now, runway looks pretty clear, and there is an understanding on the part of the CSSU board that those apply universally across all happy members of the family.
We asked them to shoot for the 2% or a way to get there.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions on the CSSU debrief?
Ask a question of the bid process. Public bidding. I see that there's rules on above 15,000, and I know the board doesn't decide below 15,000, but is the same rule apply? The lowest win?
I don't think so.
Does that make sense?
I don't think so.
The process isn't prescribed below 15,000, but your administration generally believes whenever they make a procurement on your behalf for schools, that it be in the best interest of the school financially and for practice and process with students. So it isn't like your administrators, and you correct me if I'm wrong, see it under 15,000 and go, I can spend it any way I want. They generally make sure they're doing the right thing. But they don't have to produce, they don't have to go through a process step to ask for your approval by policy. You're leaving it up to them to make those decisions.
If something is 15,000 or lower, I believe there's that magic number that you hit right on the button. I don't think you have to put it up to bid. Right? Isn't that true? You don't need to have a public bidding process if you anticipate that it's $15,000 or less. I mean, you can still put it up for bid, I think, and then, you know, and select from one of the bidding, that somebody who submits a bid.
Yes
But you
or no,
don't
Bob?
need, but you don't need to do that.
Yes or no?
If the procurement is above 15,000?
No, below.
Less than 15,000, do you have to put it out to bid at all?
If it's below 15?
Right.
No.
Yeah. Right, so that's, so you do whatever.
That was easy, wasn't it?
You aren't required by law to put it out to public bid.
Right.
Jean, did you have an opportunity to look at those references in the Colt report? Was it in the Colt report? I think it was, the bidding process, or was it in your
That's what he's
report?
reading.
It was in the Colt report at
But
the
not these.
tail end.
These weren't
There's a-
there?
Those were from the board chairman.
Okay. Because we do have some guidelines from the board chairs if you'd like to look at them. Okay, can we go on to the student council?
If they're still awake.
If they're
Are you
still
awake?
awake.
Like,
Are you kidding? They're doing their homework, poor things.
So just a little recap on sports first. We had our Friday Night Lights game last Friday, which was extremely exciting. Overall, the school had so much spirit. Just walking into school on Friday was very exciting. And the halftime show was great. There were kids who wanted Isaiah and Jeremiah to DJ winter ball and prom, so people were very excited throughout the entire night. I also got to talk to some students, and they had interesting views on the turf vote. And I was surprised to hear that students were talking about this. I know that we're crunched on time, so when this comes up, student council can even ask students what they thought on the vote for those fields. And then going into playoffs, we're starting, football's playing Brattleboro, soccer boys are playing Spalding, and soccer girls are playing North Country.
And then for field hockey, the girls' field hockey, they were seeded as number 3 for the playoffs, which is very good. They'll be playing on October 24th. Cross countries districts were this weekend, and states will be. So districts are this weekend. States will be next weekend. For Scholars Bowl, their first meet is going to be on November 6th in Essex. Debate and Forensics, their first meet is going to be on the 31st in Woodstock. For theater, Chicago's taking place this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And they're going to start at 6:30, and they're going to have a show at the Manatee on Sunday that starts at 2 p.m. And so tickets are on sale at the school store. And we recently had the PSAT for the juniors and sophomores. And just a general survey from the students in my own social group, it went fine, and it was just a necessary thing that we had to do. Yeah.
And then some things that student council is working on in the upcoming weeks and months is we're working on a homework awareness week. This is still in the brainstorming phase, but it was proposed by Bill Pinney, and he had this idea for a week to be dedicated to opening up conversations about homework. So whether students are going up to teachers and discussing homework policies, whether we have too much or too little homework, it's just a way for students and faculty to not sound like they're complaining about homework and have an open environment. So that's one thing that we're working on. Another is Spring Rally. We sent out a survey, and we got close to 400 responses, which was very exciting, that people were actually putting their 2 cents in. So we're looking for that in April. And then another thing we're working on is Cafe for a Cause, which is when we donate a portion of the funds from the cafeteria to a local community, local charity.
And that will be happening in December.
Yeah.
And then the last thing, I just want to inform you guys that I will be stepping down from my position and will be replaced with another junior. The reason for this is that I'm doing an exchange year next year in Switzerland, so I won't be able to fulfill the requirement of the 2 years, and the experience that a junior is getting goes into their senior year to make them a more effective member. So it would be selfish for me to, take up all that experience and then just go away with it and not be the senior representative. So this will be my last meeting, and I think in November there's there'll be a new student.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Well, congratulations.
Well,
Thank you for your service, Jason.
Yeah, it was really fun. I love it. You guys do great work.
And enjoy Switzerland.
And you get to keep the nameplate.
Yes, I do.
That's right.
I don't know. I can't believe he's given up this.
I know.
Experience for Switzerland, I mean, really.
Okay, do we have any committee reports for this evening?
I think we want to talk about communications.
Talk about what?
I did.
Sorry, Jane.
Communications.
We didn't, but if you want to.
Yeah, okay. It's just that the, so the you guys are doing a great job, you got your plan, getting great things that are being written out there. Personally, I would like to see it before it goes to print, since it has my name on it, so I'm just asking for 24 hours. I don't know how other people feel about it, but,
well, I don't think we have any objection to that, to be honest. It's like killing us to get them out on time with the record having such an early deadline, and the turnaround is just so fast, and we work. It's, I mean, we will absolutely do our best. We heard your feedback after, when you emailed us, that's for sure, and we discussed it.
For the rest of the board, is the Communications Committee put out a piece about Act 46. And I understand how you were probably against a wall, but I do want to let people know that the piece was vetted by both Colleen and Elaine before it was published.
Right.
So, in my opinion, I understand Jean's, like, you know, you want to see it. I'm sure if both Elaine and Colleen vetted it.
well, Colleen significantly edited it, which were not all accepted by ours, and which was appropriate, but it wasn't.
Well, it was almost not accepted at all, because it's basically, the word "the" was left when she was done.
Yeah.
So,
But no, it
and
was
because
not.
the whole tenor, the Communications Committee has taken on this idea that these need to be accessible articles that are going to be read by the public with some level of interest, and not to the level of detail that somebody who's sitting as a chair of the committee might write an article on the very same topic. They're really different. And so, you know, Elaine's feedback was, this is a good article, people will understand it, I think. And then she said, but you should show it to Colleen too, and then it got revised some more, and it became a lot more
Well, I'm not going to talk
complex.
about that in particular. All I know is I saw that she had gone overboard, so I wasn't even going to talk to that.
Yeah.
But I do think,
Yeah.
and in most years, they're just informative about interesting things going on in the
Right.
school. In fact, I've never had an issue with anything that's been written, but I do think it's just a courtesy to say, but we all have to understand, it's basically 24 hours, and we're really, the Communications Committee is not really asking us to edit the thing. It's really, if you read it and you go, whoa, wait, hold it. You know, this is an issue for me.
We can't even ask you to edit, because we'll never get anything out.
Right,
Right. editing
right.
it.
And if you want to edit it, you're interested in that, then you should just be on the committee. You know, that would be the
Right. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
I did want to see if we wanted to talk about, Kathy, you had abstained about the senior privileges because you had some concerns about the parents, and I understand that now, you know, it's not this group of seniors and we've approved in the past, but at what point would it be appropriate for us as a board, if we have some concerns or wanted to talk more about that, to have that opportunity to bring that up? Like, what happens to the parent who the parent never sees a letter, never signs it off as a parent, and yet their student gets to go off campus and the parent's not even aware that their student's doing that? I have no idea how that plays out. And I don't know when we're supposed to talk about that.
So it's like the process we've normally had, and just when I was chair, we can, I don't know if you've ever articulated something differently, Polly, but since it's not in our work plan, what we would normally do is something like this. We'd say, is this something the board wants to take up? And then Polly would try to figure out a way. If we say yes, Polly would figure out a way to put it on the agenda, a future agenda.
Yeah, and we could, if the work plan is usually developed at our retreat.
Right.
So if we wanted to get it in a work plan, that wouldn't be, we wouldn't even talk about this until the next year.
But if, in this case, we wanted to do it sooner, we could.
We could, but we'd have to fit it, I have to look at our current work plan for this year and see where we could fit it in.
So I guess my question, the other part of this is, it would seem to me, I always get confused about what is our role as a board, but it would seem to me that this is Adam and the school's responsibility to make this determination, not necessarily ours. It's just, I don't know. I mean, I'm really waffling because I'm asking. Like, I mean, he heard the concerns, and so part of me would say, you heard it, and you know, I'm sure you're going to think about it because you're not a thoughtless person. And then is it going to, you know, is that enough? Or, and I just don't know.
I think since, in my opinion, since the board approves that,
It,
it
correct.
certainly
That's
would
putting
be,
our name on it.
It certainly would be something that we should.
Put your name on it, and I, you know, I have the concern because it is an important privilege, and I think that the students, out of courtesy for that privilege, should sign and have the discussion with their parents because it's an adult discussion, right?
So why don't,
I think that would be micromanaging for us to come up with the process for how
Right,
it's
right,
done.
yeah.
I think we task the administration to work with the seniors who, these are adult decisions.
Yeah,
They
they're
should
adult
be,
decisions,
they need
right.
to come up with the process.
No, but I think the question really for the board is, the board want to have a short discussion about, or a long discussion, but some discussion about this at a future board meeting in order to say, is 85% appropriate, or should there be something else? And that's what, Adam would have to give some thought to it.
Right.
We'd have to think about it, and we'd carve out 20
Put it on
minutes or
the
so.
work plan, right.
It sounds like there's interest.
I mean, the other approach would be to say, we think of this as a right and not a privilege, and that we publicize that in your senior year, when you come here, you have an open campus.
Automatically have an open campus. That would be
That's-
another way.
And that might make people more comfortable because it's
question.
out there, it's publicized, and we don't go through the rigmarole every year of approving it. Has it ever not been approved?
Not since
No,
I've been on.
I don't think so.
1 year,
Yeah.
it was approved only because the class didn't get here until June, for just 1 month
So
of the year.
that means they were approving it themselves throughout the year. The
They were,
administration wasn't.
I have to
they
say,
accepted
unless-
responsibility for that.
Yeah.
Unless a prior principal was yanking my chain, it was way higher than 85%, not that long ago. So, I mean, I remember
I
like,
thought it
we
was
had
supposed
6
to be
kids who
100.
didn't sign it. I mean, it was like that kind of thing. So I think that 85, I'm shocked at 85, so.
So is this going on a future work or future agenda? Is that where we're at?
We can discuss that at,
Yeah.
when we set the agendas.
Yeah, I think Adam brings up a good point, you know, right versus privilege and pros and cons, and what do you want to do?
I think as long as the parents are aware, because if I'm a parent, I'm assuming my kid's at school, and I find out later they're not in school.
Right.
And I just, you know, I would, being from old school, I'd just assume, well, if they go to school, they're in school, not knowing, oh, it's a free, I mean, if I heard later it's a free campus, then I understand that, but.
I might not use the term free campus.
Campus.
Well, I don't know, you know, but just,
Right.
especially once,
An open
especially
campus,
once your
yeah.
kid has a driver's license.
Yeah.
Okay, are there any other committee reports to discuss? Okay. Can we move on to 6.0 discussion matters, specifically 6.1 SU purchase services? That is this chart right here. And is everyone aware of the purchases, or the SU services that CVU purchases from the SU and CSSU? We purchase IT, Connecting Youth, Food Service, ELL, which is English Language Learners. We do not purchase EPLs, which is Early Learning.
Early learning,
Early
whatever,
Learning.
providers.
That's a K-8. Does anyone have any questions on this? I guess we will find, when we get the CSSU budget, what we will be paying for some of this.
Well, I think we have to, is this an action matter?
No, it's not an
No.
action matter, it's just this discussion.
We don't have to decide today, Bob? Cool.
No, you actually have a rule that you have to, as a discussion matter before approval the following month. So
Okay.
in November, you'll affirm your participation in those 4.
Okay, well, the only, I guess the only thing to add discussion-wise is that there was a discussion at the CSSU board. CY is, our Connected Youth program has a lot of, it's not just spending, it can be affected by grants coming and going, and so there was some concern around the table of committing to funding CY and then finding out that CY's got a significant loss of a grant, and it's a big number that, especially given everyone's budget's very tight. So that was the discussion around the table.
And we won't know that until next month.
Right, but we don't have to if we don't have to commit till next month.
Okay. Policy, item 6.2. Does anyone have any discussion on 6.2.1, duty of care to students, or the pupil privacy rights, which is 6.2.2? Everyone saw the corrections that the policy committee had suggested.
Pretty easy. Had to read like 90 pages last month.
So easy.
I know.
Sat
Every
down
once
this
in a while
weekend and
that
read them, and there were 2
happens.
pages.
I know. If we have no discussion on that, then can we move on to 6.3? The only reason I put this in about budget buddies is I believe we have 3 Kim, you have Randy, Lorna, you have Patrice, and I have my previous budget buddy, Vicki Walker. It is suggested that the budget buddies come to the common topic on November 17th, which is the discussion of special education. There is a possibility that I may get you a budget buddy.
Cool.
Jean.
Jean
Jean or Jean, whatever, or one of the Williston people. I had advertised in the Front Porch Forum for a budget buddy. I put it in a couple times, and I got a response from a woman, Cindy Provost. Does that name sound familiar?
Yeah.
I haven't heard back from her, but if she does not do it, Charlie McGill would be happy to do it.
Ooh, there you go.
That'll be fun.
So that's it. That's all I have to discuss about budget buddies. I think it's a little too late. I think we'll have 4 budget buddies. Just make sure that your budget buddies' email address gets off to Sandy so that they can get the materials. Okay. Let's move on to 7.0, action matters. The only action matter we have is appoint a board member to the safety committee. Do I have a motion to appoint a board member to
Do you
the
have a
safety
volunteer?
Yeah, well.
I'll make a motion.
Then we can, after we have the motion, we have a volunteer. Do you do the volunteer first?
Yeah,
or-
you gotta get the volunteer first.
Okay.
Let's just make a
There's
motion and
any
then look
motion.
for volunteers.
Can you make it? You were interested.
It depends on what time
Yeah.
it is, honestly. So it really is, for me, day and time dependent.
Typically, they're from 8 to 9 or
What
so, and I think it's on a Thursday, but I can double check.
Anyway,
We also might be able to flex it for
See,
an
like, if you
important
could do
board
like
member.
7:30, I'd say, yeah. Because just so you guys know, as Jean knows, my job is global, so I'm trying to fit things into time slots, so for me, a little bit earlier is better.
Doesn't look like we have another volunteer, or do we?
I don't think 6:30 would go over.
You're right.
Not with students.
Oh, the principals.
Just sleep in as high school
Especially tomorrow
students.
morning.
well,
Although
Kathy, do
that's
you want to
only
see if it
Wednesday.
works out? And if
Yeah.
it doesn't work out for
Yes,
Kathy, we can
yeah.
revisit this again?
Yeah, I'm sure I'm
I think
pretty
that's-
sure we could make that work,
that's
so
right.
Okay.
I'm just trying to see
Email
what
it.
the next one is scheduled for. Almost there. I'm not there. Okay. We'll see what we can do.
Okay. So, do I have a motion to appoint Kathy to the safety committee?
Yes,
Yeah.
I get to do it now.
Okay, do I have a second?
Moving this meeting along.
Kim, a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, abstain?
Kathy, you can't vote
Kathy,
against her.
You
go
abstain?
for it.
Thank you, Kathy.
Yes. And then the last is, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second? Ray? All those in favor of the consent agenda say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
But
Jean, you gonna vote against?
8.5, we had to move one of these to
A repeal, yes.
8.3.5 became 8.4. 8.4 became 8.5.
Yes, okay, so that 8 point,
Yeah, we moved that
so we
one
need
off.
to do that separately. Officially repeal that.
Anybody want to change their vote now that they have the number?
No, it's a repeal.
So we are in favor of this. So any nays, abstains? The ayes have it for the consent agenda. I just want to confirm the next meeting dates. The CVU board will be meeting November 17th. We'll start here at 7. Then you will go to your local boards for your Act 46 review of what's been going on with that committee. Then I would like to remind the budget buddies that need to come to the, again, for the common topic, which is all about, it says tech integration here, but I don't think that's true.
not, it's special ed.
It's special ed.
Special ed, yeah.
And then there's one other thing I did want to add. Adam sent out an email maybe last week about a symposium about standards-based learning. And you emailed me the date, which is November 20th from 8:30 to 3 at UVM. Are you going to follow up with, do we have to register for that if we are interested?
I would register and pay for you, so.
Okay.
What day of the week is
It's
that?
Friday.
It's a Friday. And it's
So
a,
if you want to just send me an email individually, that's fine.
Right.
And I can take care of it.
and maybe you could just reiterate again, send it out to the board. Was it for all board, it was for all
Yeah,
board
for anyone
members?
who's-
Okay.
Should be good.
Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn? So moved. Second? Excellent. Thank you, everyone.